last session, for those that weren't here, in Sukhasana, taking your hands to the tops of your crossed legs. Just close your eyes and come into your breath a bit. And as I mentioned in a recent blog post, which you can look at if you have time on the website, first step is always to check in with your body and see how it's doing. The way to do that is to drop into your breath and just do a very simple inhale, exhale, releasing anything that's unnecessary in the body, tension-wise, mentally, physically, emotionally. And as you inhale, imagine filling the body with fresh energy, light energy, like helium, healing energy. And so we covered this last week, and it feeds in or feathers in nicely to this week's exploration of the spine and the quality that you want to create in your body and your mind as you start to move the spine, because you certainly don't want to crank it in different directions without first assessing and cultivating an easy lightness to the spine. So even as you sit, just check out whether your hips, tailbone, pelvis are grounded, particularly on the exhale pattern, and as you inhale, just have a sense of lightness, lift. And the elongation of the spine, which we covered yesterday, we did our imaginary headstands by placing the tops or the fronts of our hands to the top of our head. Make sure the head is in a nice position. For everyone, it's slightly different, but generally the chin is slightly tucked down, and then you just start to push down through the tailbone, the sacrum, to get a gentle sense of lift. So our primary objective today is elongation, but we use spinal movements to do that. Let's first bring the palms to the heart, take our om, or hum, or ah, as you prefer. Let all the tension out of the body as you exhale, and then fill on inhale. Release the hands, and we'll come to Virasana. And Dorian, you can stay in cross-legged Sukhasana if you like. It doesn't matter, or anybody that's got some issues with folding their knees like this and sitting on their shins, you can sit on your towel roll or wedge it between your heels and your pelvis. And then we're going to just simply do our normal arch and curl. Inhale, looking up, and potato chip curling the back and then rounding. So as you go into this, you might want to close your eyes and just feel the action of the tail, the tailbone, as the primary mover of the rest of the spine. So this is so embedded in yoga practice, this Shiva Shakti or cat and cow movement, and yet it's not articulated beyond the basic movement very much. But you have to imagine, and if you've never seen the movie Avatar, you have to watch it, that you do have this magnificent tail, and it can propel the rest of the spine. Mostly we're eye-driven folks, so where we look, we go. But let your eyes be soft and track softly if they are open. Then we'll take the hands up in goalpost fashion and just clasp them behind the head like this. Can we do a little bit of opening the subscapularis and the armpits as we arch? And then exhale, curl. And go easy with the head and the neck, particularly those that have some things going on in the neck. We'll get a little bit more work when we lay down in a moment. We get moving from the tailbone, letting the arms create a triangular structure of support, almost like a coat hanger structure. And you can open the mouth and take a big yawn. Ah, I think the master muscle of the mouth. And then if we stop for a second and we just inhale, curl to the right by contracting the right ribs, exhale back to center. We just start to do these side curls that we did the other day, contracting as you inhale, side ribs, and then exhale, releasing. Let's release the hands and take an easy twist now with the left hand coming across the right knee. And lift, arch, and exhale, drop the tailbone. Feel evenness in the two sides of the rib cage, and breathe. Check in with the amount of tension or torque that you've created in the body with that hand outside the knee, and minimize it. Make it tenable for the spine. So the twists create a structure, a spiral structure, which is very strong and allows us to move about in strong poses. But we have to make sure we're not over-torquing the spine. Let's go to the other side, let the chest inhale, drop the tailbone, exhale. And so you're finding in the twisting pattern the union of the Shiva Shakti or the cat and cow undulations. So we're neither too arched in this twist, which might disturb the sacroiliac joints, or too rounded and collapsed. We're finding tension, if you will, but counter twisting, counter balancing of these patterns that are generally tied to the inhale and the exhale. And we breathe into the patterns of the breath and the patterns of the pose with the notion of being able to find the right balance for our bodies. That's good. So we've just covered the major movements of the spine, but let's take it onto our backs just to warm up a little more in our morning bodies. And we'll take a towel roll, and just as a reprise of yesterday, we'll start with that towel roll under the sacrum, taking bridge pose and taking the towel roll under the sacrum. But let's see if we can use our straps now, and we're going to rope as you pull your knees in and hug them. It should feel good on your low back, like a child's pose inverted. And you can get your strap ready and just pretty short distance between the hands, and just take it on the shins, and then take the feet down like bridge pose, holding the strap with your long arms as high up toward your ankles as you can. Your feet are on your knees. And all you're going to do here is just gently hold the strap, don't go crazy. And then we do our arch and curls with our tailbone going forward over the towel roll on inhale, and exhale, curling back. And just let the spine and the head, the rest of the spine, move where it will. You'll notice that with our heads planted on the ground, as we experienced the other day, the arching pattern of the low back lifts the chest and brings the head into elongation. The back of the neck, chin comes toward the chest. So it's a little more sophisticated, and we start to limber up that low back. Then we can lift up into a bridge pose, pushing our shins forward against the strap and rolling the shoulders back, making sure the back of the neck has some purchase or some pressure on the ground, has a curve in it. The back of the neck is a curve. It's elongating, you're pulling the arm bones, upper arm bones back toward the floor, you're pushing the shin bones forward. And just a little bit of scoop of the tailbone to find that happy place between arch and curl. The low back is happy, happy. And then you're going to come down, release your knees toward your chest. Again, a little repeat of yesterday. We'll take our legs straight up into the strap, flex our toes, open them up, open the arches of the feet. And if you bend the knees toward you, then you can curl the tailbone. And then as you inhale, straighten the legs. And just start to pump both legs towards straight and then curling. Inhale and exhale. And then let's take the soles of the feet together, the knees wide, hike the hands up the strap. You can even pin your elbows right into the mid quad or mid adductor or groin, and just find a structure that's breathable. So you don't have to yank the feet toward you into your ultimate yoga pose. You can find a nice geometry that you can breathe into. And be mindful of how this structure, this geometry is feeling on your low back. I'm going to open the feet out to a split. This is all review of Monday. Again, flex the toes back toward you. Move the tailbone forward over the towel roll and allow the tongue and the jaw to relax, the arms to be hanging on gently like a kite, suspended, breathable. You can still bring wind, the wind of the breath into the pose without overdoing it. We'll pull the feet together and remove the strap. Just roll off to one side or lift your hips and take the towel roll out. And now we're going to just roll over to one side for a moment and take the towel roll back to the small of the neck. So just to show you, I'm going to put it right into that neck there. And if you have any neck issues, this should feel really good, but obviously be careful. And make sure you're far enough away from the wall that as we move toward it, you have some space. So I'd say the towel would be about mid-mat if you're, or at least a third of the way down the mat. And then we come to bridge pose again. Take the arms out to a comfortable position for the first round. And then you're just going to move do your sacral tilts. Inhale forward. And exhale back. And as you inhale the hips forward, you're going to get a nice, hopefully gentle stretch and traction on the back of the neck. So the cervical vertebrae are just gently pulled. Go easy. And you can be your own chiropractor with this. We can also take our strap again and do what we did moments ago and just toss it over the knees and down the shins for a different variation of bridge pose. And walk your hands pretty high up the ends of the strap. And then do the same sacral tilt. Gently using the arms to pull back toward you as the hips tilt away. Go easy, let the head roll. Okay, so let's just get ourselves a little bit. You can drop the strap just where it is and just get ourselves a little bit further over that towel roll to about the upper shoulders. And you can take your arms up like you're carrying a box like this for a second. And just go from side to side. Make sure your head is not too dropped back, so not too much arch for you, that's the case, then you can reduce the towel roll, or take your hands to the back of your head, like we did moments ago in Virasana. And then you arch and curl. So in this case, the pattern is exactly the same as we started. Hips move forward, the head moves back, and if you've got your hands under the small of your neck, the occiput, again, it should be quite nice. You're getting a little bit of traction. Don't overdo it, pulling the nape of the neck, the skull, a little longer in the extension pattern. And you're getting a little work in those mid-back muscles, the medial trapezius and rhomboid. So this is just basic work in the spine. Now let's see if we can C-shape. So we're going to just gently, as you exhale, you can come up with your head supported in your hands and just start to C-shape the left ribs like a fish. So the head is moving left and the left hip is, the muscles are engaging. So I contract the left ribs and then I set my head down, in a C shape. Inhale to center. You can again lift the head up an inch. And then, just as we did in Virasana, C-shape the right side, drop the head. I want you to go easy, because this is actually a subtle way of taking a C shape. And again, if you've got neck issues, this could be absolutely wonderful if the head relaxes into the hands and you just explore a gentle traction. You can make this micro movement, and the towel is effectively masseusing some of the deep muscles that help us move this upper back. And that can feel quite nice. And let's see if we can just lift our knees and reestablish that strap again over the shins and hold it in this version or setup for bridge pose. Now we're gonna move the sacrum as usual, back and forth, relaxing the jaw now. And then as you inhale, push the shins into the strap, lift the hips, and just let the towel roll. Create a little pressure in this area of the back. Pull with the arms, and let the shoulders roll open. And make sure your tongue and your back of your palate are relaxed. You might be able to feel, if you're quite sensitive, as the tailbone moves forward, it opens up the back of the throat. But if there's no support in the pelvic floor in this pose, the back of the throat becomes very agitated and contracted. So I should be able to sing or do an om here. Ah, ah. And I'm being a little goofy just to show you that you don't want to fight pose by being in imbalanced position. So now we've warmed up the lower and the upper parts of the back. We got them a little aware. Let's slide just an inch over our towel rolls and drop our knees over to the left and our head to the right. And give ourselves a little bit of twist. And we can inhale to center and exhale over to the side. And combine the upper body and the lower body actions. If you want an extra credit, you could take your strap around the shins as before. And if you're on your back in this position, I want you to be careful looking at your screen. So it'd be better to come up and watch if you want. And I can use my shins and arms to tether so that I have a dancing partner supporter as I move into my spiral pattern. Take this one step further. And if I loop the strap solely over my right shin bone, I drop the widespread feet over to and knees to the left, and then I start to push on the diagonal of that right shin to the front left corner of the mat and pull with the arms. I get a psoas stretch. I come back, I lasso over my left knee, inhale, and exhale, drop the knees to the right, and pull with the arms, get the shoulders back, and push that left shin on the diagonal to the front right corner of the mat. So it's going to give you a psoas stretch right up into the back of the shoulder blade. All right? How about one more bridge pose just for fun? Looping the strap over the shins, take an inhale, open the shoulders, exhale, curl the tailbone, and push the shins and the tailbone forward, toning the inner legs and the pelvic floor up. And then we'll come down and we'll roll to the side and come up to standing. So that's should be a little bit warmed up. Now we're going to go to the wall and go horseback riding. So we're going to just take our butts, and more specifically, so I'm supposed to be a yoga teacher, I should use anatomy terms. We're going to take our sacrum, and I'm kind of compromised here on my French doors, but nevertheless, I can do Shiva Shakti or pelvic tilts and feel the bone of my sacrum. Also, I'm starting to fire up my quads, so those that came into class wanting to do a workout, here you go. You can just do this exercise for 20 minutes. So again, as the hips drop and you arch, you might even be able to push or find the back of the head into the wall and exhale. Look down, flatten. If you're having problems with the pattern, take your hands to your back to your kidneys. In the exhale pattern, you squish your low back, kidneys into the wall. Inhale, lift, and create space. Okay? So we won't be here too long, but as we move in this pattern, we'll start to fire up the quads. And we can, as we arch and lift, you can feel the toe mounds of the big toes. And as you curl, let's feel the heels. Let's take the hands forward to the knees, get a little relief, and lean forward. And can we do the same thing? Now just like rolling out our tailbone, give ourselves a little back rub on our low back, more specifically our glutes, glute medials, as we arch and curl here. And if we were to start to come up a little higher and see if we could take the fingertips to the floor, find the right position of your bent knees, and just drop tailbone, drop the head. It's like an advanced malasana. You can use a chair as well, or you could just drop onto your forearms like that. But you can see how keeping the tailbone slightly dropped here in the aponic pattern is a good thing. So what I'm actually doing, and you can try this if you want, advanced students, is to crawl out with the fingertips away from the feet, like you're doing a downward dog, but keeping the tailbone as if pressed, even though it's come away from the wall, as if it's still seeking the wall. Now we're extending the spine in both directions.
not putting much weight on the shoulders at all. We'll bend the knees, drop our tailbones, crawl the hands back, and then take the feet out like a duck and come into true malasana.
And some people's hips are configured that they want a closer spacing. And just find this aponic pattern to curl the spine. And then we'll take a forward fold, bring the feet to parallel, drop the head. Have an action of lifting through the inner legs, spreading the toes, and then dropping the head, shaking it. You can go from side to side like you're stomping on grapes. As you go from side to side, you can even play with your fingers are on the floor, your hands. C-shaping a little bit, contracting the left ribs as you swing the pendulum of the spine to the left and then contracting the right ribs. So all the patterns can be done in different planes and produce different effects. This is nice because it allows you to get the traction of gravity. Let's bend the knees, come up with a rounded spine. And before we get too crazy, face the wall and do our pull-ups for the day. So it's really nice if you do have a door or a window frame that you can hook your fingers onto like a pull-up bar. If you don't, you can just find the action of your fingers against the wall, and hopefully your hands are dirty so that people in your house are not going to give you trouble. But we'll reach up the wall, and as we inhale, we're going to pull, keeping the arms straight. We're going to pull our arms down and lift our heels up. Ah, look up. Extension. As you exhale, you're going to bend the knees, drop the tailbone, and let the arms be stretched in a different pattern, maybe placing the head against your wall. And my feet are about a foot away from the wall. Same thing, inhale, we've done this before. Reach up a little higher if you can. Arch from the low back to the upper, and then the arms may come down a little, like a cat trying to hang onto a wall, and start to make the first drop of the tailbone toward chair pose. So if you do have this ability to find the top of a window frame or a door, you can do essentially what would be a pull-up, or the action of a pull-up, and that's kind of nice and engages the lats. If not, you can just feel that action now as we come up and down, dragging the arms energetically down toward you as you lift up. And then step away from the wall, stand in Tadasana and see how things are feeling. And notice, as you close your eyes, how your low back and your upper back tend to pattern. And everybody's a little bit different with this. Let's do just a little bit more basic stuff before we go into the others. And we'll take our chairs, the tops of our chairs like so, and we'll come into a warrior one with the left foot back, and it doesn't have to touch the wall, and the hands on the chair, the top of the chair. If you don't have a chair, you can take your hands to your front knee. But with the straight arms pushing down on the top of the chair, I can keep the chest lifted and length in the mid-back. So we worked on this the other day a little bit, and we had actually our front foot on a chair, and that is, what we're going to do is lift the back heel and bend that back knee, look down toward the chair, and curl to our curled pattern, our flexion pattern, and then inhale, shoot the heel back in standard warrior one fashion, and allow the extension to develop, maybe looking up. So exhale, bend that back knee, lift the back heel, and rotate inward so that the shin and the upper leg, left leg, are squaring off. And so as you do this, it's fairly simple. I want you to close your eyes once you get it and feel that your tailbone is now getting more intelligent. And the SI joint on the left side is opening and closing. This is called mutation, but it doesn't matter. Now, as we come into our bent knee position, can we drop the left knee all the way down? Place our forearms on top of the chair, drop our heads, and just take a few breaths to take a low lunge, training our breath and our minds into the area of the sacrum to make sure it's in a balanced position between extension and flexion. That's going to allow a safe pose to develop. So the low back is not going to get tortured. Let's take the hands to the chair, and we can curl the back toes under and come up. So let's just switch sides, feet together, and then we'll take the right foot back. And once again, as you exhale, lift the back heel, rotate the hips square, and look down, curving the spine, and then inhale, shoot the back heel back, lift, and curl. And all we're trying to do is awaken the muscles around the sacrum. Now we come all the way down to the floor, place the hands on the chair, drop the head, keep the engagement of the core locks. But more importantly, discriminate as to how much arch or curl the tailbone is good for you in this pose. Let's allow the pose to drop in, the breath to circulate. Yes, the inner leg to stretch. Basic stuff, but we're going to get into even more very shortly. Let's come up and let's step the feet together. And let's take that left foot back again. Same thing, we're going to curl and look down, lifting the back heel, and then lift. And then curl and lift. And let's open out to Warrior Two. And we keep our right hand on the chair and start to reach back, fingertips to the wall with the left hand. We'll come into side angle. We can take that right forearm to the top of the chair. Start to extend through the inner left leg, plant in the heel. And I want you to feel a slight contraction of the right ribs here to start with. So in a way, we're C-shaping down into those right hip and right ribs. Then reach up to the sky and start to take the hand, left hand back behind you. You're protected with the chair. You could even spin the palm behind you and start to just open into a twist here. But make sure that back hip, left hip isn't going to go with you. Or if you prefer, take your left hand to the back of your head and start to lean back, almost in the same form we did on our backs where we're C-shaping over the mid-back towel roll. And reach up, inhale, straighten the front leg, and start to come into triangle pose so we can take our left hand to our hip and take our right arm on top of the chair. See if you can slide past the elbow to the tricep. Spin the palm, the right palm up to the sky like you're serving a platter. And start to move the legs apart and maybe C-shaping these underside ribs. So contract like that fish pattern. You can pull gently and drop your head onto your bicep. got my left heel, by the way, now into the wall, which is kind of a nice thing. So using the C-shaped pattern of the spine to start with, we can come into a version of triangle pose. Then as we launch the upper arm, in much the same way we just did in side angle, we start to press the palm, turn the palm back to the wall, and to use that arm as a lever to now push back and lengthen those underside ribs as if I'm going to move the chair forward with my extending right arm. So now those right ribs are extending and finding a balance. Inhale, come up. You can use your forearm. Ah, a lot of work and thought. So let's try the other side. Opening out to warrior two. Hands start on the chair. And remember this pattern. You can always do a few reprises just to remind your sacrum that even in the static poses, like the side angle, like the triangle pose, there's an interplay here at work. And as we open to warrior two, for example, we don't want to give up our awareness of this nutation, so to speak, of this curling inward of the right side of the sacrum, dropping in, which some teachers will just say, move your front right hip forward. So as we come into warrior two, right fingertips might find the wall. And then we come into side angle, just taking the forearm of the left arm down and starting to use the muscles along the left side body to contract, at the same time extending the right heel back. So we're, in a sense, although to start with, it may seem incorrect, we're C-shaping. So most teachers will say, keep both sets of ribs even. But all we're doing is using this as a means to an end to get into the pose. Now we're going to lift that right arm up to the sky, start to open it back behind us, and a bit of a back bend. And if the neck is injured, we support it. And we gently press, head back. And we have a nice complex movement, C-shape and twist. From here, let's come up and try triangle pose. And we're going to feed our left arm forward. You can bend your front knee so that the tricep is resting. Elbow slid forward, right hand to hip, just to feel that uplift, then engagement in the deep muscles of the right sacrum. And then can you contract the left ribs, like pulling a wire? As you continue to push through the front leg, just drop your head down. If you can, separate your legs. And we can start with the C shape. Then we bring that right arm up to the sky if that's doable. This time, we're going to push the palm away from us, like we're going to push the palm to the wall, and that starts to lift up the pose. It may even lift the head. But you can always keep it down. And now the ribs get level. It's like an arrow from a bow of the legs shooting forward. And let's come up. And take the feet together. So just stand for a second and see if you haven't opened up the side ribs, the low back, and the shoulders just a bit. And then we're going to come down to hands and knees before we go any further and just do a child's pose, just to make sure that people haven't overdone the movements of the spine. So take a few breaths in your child's pose, and then we'll move on. So all of these actions, side bending, twisting, and the extension flexion, can play out in postures. Almost any posture could be played with in this pattern. So what would it look like in hands and knees? Well, we know a little bit of this. As you take your hands under your shoulders and knees under your hips, you start to do your cat and cow. Simple stuff. And this is a great way to feel the upper and lower back and mid back that we've warmed up with the towel roll. And if you were injured or just wanting to stay in that simple pattern, you could, or sitting back toward child's pose and looking toward your hands, inhale pattern. Now you're going to pull up into your cat pose and exhale, sink down into your cow pose. So now we're going to add a little motion of the legs up and down with the hips into flexion extension. Let's go ahead and take our forearms forward and come into easy cobra and pulling our feet back, walking our feet back and a little closer together. Spin our palms to the sky and push outward with the elbows to lift the chest. The mid back now starting to get a lift from the tops of the kidneys. And then drop your head down onto both hands for a second. Regaining the sense of the tailbone dropping. Let's drop the head down, do a few cobra push-ups, the hands wide, rolling the shoulders forward in the dropping pattern, the flexion pattern. Tailbone is anchoring to the floor, shoulders rolling forward, like a cat pose. Then you come up, and as you press up, take it down, drop the head, anchor the tailbone, pushing the frontal hips down, and then halfway up, reverse roll. And go easy, feeling all parts of the spine from the lower back, through the mid back, through the upper back. And then we'll roll back to child's pose. The C shape, of course, that we generally do is come halfway up, walk the hands to the left, and C shape the left part of the spine as you drop the head down. And then if you walk the hands through center, over to the right, you C shape with the right ribs. And this is why it's important, even though we've done this many times, to use the muscles that help the arms move over and not just crank your arms and your body over without engaging the proper muscles. So we come back to hands and knees and C shape to the left and right, like a dog trying to look at its tail. How does that feel? So now let's see if we can slide our right leg back, keep the toes under. Inhale, look forward, and exhale, we'll start to C-shape the left side and look over the left shoulder. Release, looking forward, bring the knees together. Slide like you're crawling, the left leg back, toes under. Inhale, exhale, C-shape to the right. And just go for a little walk. So back, and then exhale, knees together, left leg back, inhale, chest, lifts, exhale, C-shape right. So you can just start to play with this pattern. It could be very gentle, opening up the top of the fascia on the top of the hip. But now we can use this to come into yoga pose. So we've got the right foot back, and we're gonna inhale forward, like the sternum is moving forward. Exhale, C-shape left. But as you're C-shaping now, see if you can artfully
drop your right heel down and come up on your right fingers. Still C-shaping and contracting left ribs. Now watching in a reverse and lift up the right arm. Ah. And that underside action, the left ribs helps me up. Knees together, left foot back, lift the chest, C shape, contract right ribs. Keep your gaze over there. Artfully drop your left heel to midline. Lift up on the left fingers. Then you're going to start to open the chest left. Start to lift open. Ah. Should feel really good. You have any sort of neck injury, C shaping to the left as the right leg goes back. Drop the right heel. You can take your hand and support the back of your skull as we did in side angle. It should feel quite wonderful. Let's try one more. And we take the left leg back, look forward, inhale, contract to the right. Drop the left heel down, then extend the left leg. Keep pulling into those right ribs as you come up on your left fingers, and let that retraction take you up. Maybe support the back of the head. Ah. And then let's take it down to child's pose and go further. So come back on your shins for a second and take a peek. Let's now, as we start to open the spine, try playing with a little greater range of motion. And then we'll do the second part of that exercise with the C shape and see how that works. So instead of just cat and cow, now imagine that your body can get a little more sophisticated and go back and forth like a wave pattern. We've done this in the past. Pulling back into cat pose with the hips back. Exhale, the wave comes forward toward cow. So maybe your body is such that it's just looks like a kind of a rocking buggy. But if you can, the wave comes all the way forward. Ah. And comes down to the belly. Inhale, you come up with the cobra, and you wave back. And so we're now getting a little more sophisticated with our flexion extension devices as a means of moving to further range of motion. As I've shown you in the past, this can also be done in downward dog for the quite advanced people with care and caution in which you come up. So your downward dog, and you inhale, lift the heels, keep the spine rounded, and exhale, drop the hips, kick the toes out, upward dog. Knees down, toes under, down dog, cat pose, heels lift. So I want you to be careful with that. And it's essentially an elaborate reprise of what we did climbing the wall earlier. Can feel really good. So let's see if we can do that C-shaped exercise. And much like we did in the side angle to Trikonasana, experiment with, okay, what happens after I C-shape and I get in there using that technology, and then lengthen out of it. So we find the balance. So same exercise, take a peek first. Right leg goes back, and you're pretty near the wall because you're going to use it. I C-shape over to my left. I drop the right heel, take a peek first, use that contraction of left ribs to come up. Then how do I level this out? I come forward, I lift that right leg up into the wall. Now both sets of ribs are equally engaged and lengthened. So I have Ardha Chandrasana. Okay? So, left leg back, inhale forward, exhale C-shape right. Blindly drop your left heel down, like a warrior one. Keep the contraction of the right ribs. Lift up on the left hand, come up. Then, slide forward, get that left foot into the wall and lengthen those underside ribs now and the upper ribs. And find the balance where everything falls into alignment and you can breathe. It feels good. That the back of the palate opens. Again, like you say, ah, feels good. You can try that a few times or come into child's pose or down dog to square off before we move on. I'm taking you deeper, deeper, deeper. So if you're getting a little too lit, stay in child's pose a little bit longer, or your downward dog. So from downward dog, let's walk the hands back to the feet, take a forward fold, bend your knees and come up through chair pose. And then standing. I told you I was going a little bit nutty today with too many ideas. But you can always watch later on and try these things out. Now we're going to take our strap and get our jolly jumper, which we did a couple months ago, and take the strap around the back. You should have a pretty long strap, and just at the top of the pelvic bones. Now take a peek. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to drop the strap down inside the legs, reach around the legs and pull up. And slide that strap down to the top of your pelvis. And you're going to get right into the goodies of the psoas muscle in the inguinal area. So make sure you're a little far apart from sensitive areas. Then if I show you the backside, I'm getting a lift up my pelvis. Takes a little pressure out of the hip joints. But also if I pull too much, it's going to kick my butt out. So I can resist a little bit with the heels down. But this is kind of nice to get into that area as we take our feet out into a straddle of the sacral muscles that I was suggesting before have to be a little educated. So the tailbone, if you just cat and cow here, pulling the strap ends back to pull the inner thighs back, as the yoga teacher tells you to, but then dropping to bent knees and resisting that strap. So it's always the same arch and curl. If I were super sophisticated, I could go right into a forward fold here, advanced students, and get a hip lift. Just to show you. What I have in mind for you is to take the right toes forward, to lift up your jolly jumper, and start to lean, contracting the right ribs toward Trikonasana. But to feel the action around the deep muscles around the sacrum and your hips. Inhale, come up, switch legs, left toes forward, and contract left ribs. It's just a means to an end. You can do both sides a few times while I grab my water. So, the best thing would be if we had a real jolly jumper that we could attach the strap ends to some sort of swing set. But let's take that away for a second and take a moment to just feel the hips. They should feel energized, the low back maybe opening up. Now we'll take the same structure that we used Monday. If you weren't here, we take the strap around that mid back. And we take the strap ends forward, we cross them. Nod our chins down. We're going to take the strap cross over the head and then
down the back, the neck, and then drop the strap down the back. And we can regrab the strap cross. So I have a cross in my back, like that. And now we've got our mid-back apparatus, like we're puppets. So imagine you're a non-yoga person who has kyphosis, and this is how you look. You start to, right, stumble to your local Starbucks. But if you were to pull the strap ends down and back, whoa, now the kite of the thoracic spine has been opened. So can we just arch and curl here, almost like we did earlier when we had our butts against the wall. And you can certainly do sacrum against the wall if you want, or freestanding. Bend your knees and curl, kyphosis, but a good kyphosis. And then, lift up, arch. And so now we are like puppets shaping the spine through this prop. And don't overdo it, because you could yank your shoulders back and your mid-back and just work this apparatus and see what it yields. The very best thing is if you have someone in your house to take the ends of the strap and hold them. You can forward fold into a downward dog. And it's the most wonderful down dog you ever did. But let's take, with our remaining time, a warrior one pose and see if we can connect the dots now. As we inhale, we're going to drop the hips, gently open the chest with these strap ends. And exhale, we're going to curl, or allow the mid-back to curl, shoulder blades are broad, look down. If you want, lift the back heel. And inhale. So now we, instead of having our hands on the chair, we've got these strap pulleys. Well, what good is this? We're just lubricating extension, flexion. And if we were silly enough, we could fly up into a balance. And the kite strings pulled out on the diagonal patterns float the chest. The lifted back leg still has to have that slight inward rotation. You could even put your head on you have your chair there and use that. So that's for the advanced students to now connect the dots. Let's take a warrior one in the left foot's back, drop in, open the sails of the mid back, the upper back, and then the other pattern, exhale, curl, lift the back heel, find the core muscles in the support the low back. Even if you're just doing this, simple exercise, and then if you are foolish enough or brave enough, you fly into balance. Come forward, find the curling pattern, and open the sails with the arms. And release. Take the strap away and stand for a second before we close off. Closing your eyes and feel how your hips, your shoulders, your spine are now. And they should be awakened. But let's lay down just for a moment and let the body reestablish its integrity in Shavasana. Finding a comfortable set of the shoulders and the hips, the toes turning out, palms to the sky. And without any of this stuff, although it seems simple, you may have gotten a little hyper energized. You can take one hand to your chest and the other hand to your solar plexus. And think of balancing these 2 points, upper and lower body. Let the
breath slow down. And then releasing the arms. You're welcome to stay in Shavasana as I close out the class, or even do your inversions if you want to do your shoulder stand for what you do at the end of class. It's additional. Then you've prepped your body for those poses as well. But to economize our time, roll off to one side if you're finishing with me. Come up to seat and Sukhasana. And feel how the low back is now planted, but a little awakened. And the side ribs are now hopefully awakened from the outer hips to the armpits. The upper arm bones can just settle on the shoulders. The back of the neck is long. Palms to heart. And we'll take a final Om as a way to release any additional tension you've cultivated, which you didn't want in your system. Releasing all the breath in the exhale, inhale. Namaste. So that's a lot, but I'll record it